haven't tried the Locklicious all-natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it feels, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is the bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.
I wash my natural hair and my face with the same product because natural hair care is easy. Natural skin care is easy. Don't make it hard.
If you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these 2 books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben Levi, popularly known as Zion Lexx. This is a masterpiece.
All right. If everybody can hear me, just type a 1 in the chat room real quick. Type a 1 in the chat room. Thumb up the video and share the live, family. Thumb up the video and share the live. If y'all can hear me loud and clear, type a 1 in the chat room. Oh, man, it's going to be epic tonight. It's going to be epic tonight. How y'all doing out there? How y'all doing out there? I heard the Israelites need to be worried. Huh? That's what I'm hearing in these YouTube streets. Huh? I'm hearing the Israelites got to watch out. Because there's a guy that just surfaced in the Sonnet House of Consciousness that said that he coming for the Bible. Yeah. And if y'all know me, I really enjoy this, y'all. You heard? I really enjoy this work right here. I was sent the brother's video early this morning, and I made some tea right? Made some nice tea, right? And over a glass of tea, an hour and 40 minutes, perhaps, I was able to glance through his lecture and prepare a response immediately. So I started looking at his lecture at about, I think, 9 a.m. this morning. Stopped looking at it about 10:40. By 11 o'clock, I was already showering, going to go paint the town red. Because as I tell everybody in the classes, when you well studied, the work is easy. Are y'all hearing me? When you well studied, the work is easy. What we talking about, huh? This is a problem? A problem for who? For somebody that's not well studied. Because when you're well studied, the work is always easy. You know what I mean? Was making the PowerPoint for how I will respond as I'm watching the lecture. Because I just know that you got to be out of your mind to make certain claims. I just know that your bias is speaking over whatever objective research you have in order to make certain claims. So I automatically knew that this was going to be a walk in the park. So after a glass of tea, a cup of tea, whatever we want to call it, a couple jokes. I had people texting me early in the morning, funny stuff. Shout out to all the comedians who hit me up out there. And immediately I was done. Because as I say, when you are well studied, the work is easy. Who am I speaking about? Let's bring up to the Summer Jam screen for one moment. Give me a second, y'all. Let me just pull up my my PowerPoint as I introduce none other than he wanted to be famous, so I'm gonna make you famous today. He wanted to be famous, so I'm gonna make you famous today. Let me pull up Asar Imhotep. All right, that's what we talking about, right? We talking about Asar Imhotep. Asar Imhotep said, "The God Yahweh, the name of the God Yahweh is of Egyptian origin." And the text that I got this morning read, "Open immediately, Zion." This guy is coming for the Bible, Ak. You gotta respond. Because Zion, you know. Who else gonna respond? And I said, damn, that's what we doing out here? That's what we doing out here? Some of us afraid to respond? That's all right. Because when you well studied, the work is easy. And time again, I've proved myself, as well as any person that you've seen me with, all of my comrades. Shout out to my brothers, Priest Daniela. Shout out to a brother who we're going to have a conversation very soon. He is still my brother. Shout out to Divine Prospect. Real talk. And shout out to my brother, my big brother, Chief Uzael Ben Lewi. And I just want to make it clear that there are certain brothers in the community who are always ready to jump out. But y'all got to ask yourself a question. When you look at certain teachers and leaders in the community that are afraid to respond to claims that are construed as being either dangerous, oppressive, or offensive, you got to ask yourself a question. Why the hell am I following this guy? Why the hell am I calling him a leader? Why is he regarded as a teacher? In other words, Israel, we got to start putting respect on those people who are always on the front line. Thumb up the video, family, and share the live, because I promise you tonight is going to be a banger. So after watching Asar Imhotep's video presentation, I just decided upon what time I would respond. I was supposed to respond about 4, maybe even 5 p.m. today. But as a day progresses, you never know what can come in a day. So things came up that made it, bad for me to go live around that time, which is why I pushed it back to 8 p.m. I am going to respond to the claims that Asar made, and I'm going to do so in a way that's very impressive. And I hope this stands as a standard in the community on how to deal with individuals, right, who challenge your views. Challenging your views among scholars and academia, there's nothing wrong with that. Because I read somewhere, might even be in the Bible, that iron sharpens iron. So if you're a scholar and you critique my views, your critique is necessary. Because if there's something within my scholarship that's faulty, you can edify me, you can sharpen me. Iron sharpens iron. I'm all for it. But if you're trying to sharpen me and you got a whole dull ass knife, then that's a problem. Because now I'm going to have to cut you, intellectually speaking. Might have to break you up a little bit, intellectually speaking. So I'm going to give this one with a little ounce of tough love, because I know that there's going to be a response, because there's always a response. Talking so cheap, people do it in their sleep. So I'm going to give this initial rebuttal with an ounce of tough love, because when he responds, then my thing is to say, let's have a full-scale debate on it. And then it'll be clear at that point who's who in the community. So with that being said, y'all, we about to get started, but I'm gonna need the family to seriously thumb up the video and share the live, y'all. We have all these people in the building, family. Show your love, show your support, especially if you came here to support the Torah, if you came here to support the Bible, you came here to support your brother Zion, then make sure that you thumb up the video and share the live. To end time watchers, no, I will not address the militant YHVH minister. I'm being funny. I won't address Jesus minister. I won't address him. He's not of my caliber. He doesn't warrant a response. Not from somebody like me. He can call my name all he wants, right? You know, the dogs with the largest bark got the smallest bites. So I'm not jumping out for everybody that calls my name. I pick and choose my battles. If the battle is worthwhile, if the opponent is formidable, strong, and great, then I'm all for it. But if you's a whole chihuahua, then I'm wasting my goddamn time. And at 42 years old, that's not even intelligent. So with that being said, watch this, y'all. We're going to have some fun tonight. Moderators, be on your you know what? Be on your you know what? Be about your biz, because we're about to get it in tonight. So y'all know what that means. They're going to be big time in their feelings tonight, y'all. I'm going to have them all the way in their feelings tonight. So I wanted to play snippets from the video so you can hear him speak. But unfortunately, YouTube has this thing called flagging. And not that Brother Sarnetta would flag me for playing the video, right? But YouTube is getting out of hand with the regulations, just so y'all know. And all of us that are content creators out here, we all know that YouTube is updating their rules every day. YouTube is flagging people without the creators even flagging. So that's what I'm referring to. All right. So I'm not going to play snippets from the original video, right? I'm going to quote it as much as I can, and then we're going to definitely get it in. So watch this, y'all. As y'all can see the title on the screen, Zion Lexx responds to Asar's claim of Yahweh being of Egyptian/Kemetic origin. Let's get it in, family. Moderators, while you are in the chat room, please remind the family to thumb up the video and share it live. Also, family, donate and show your love when you start enjoying the information. And I'm telling you right now, you're going to enjoy tonight's information. So show your love. All right. So Asar Imhotep began, in a very special place. Academia. I respect that. Absolutely, I respect that. Right? He quotes a book entitled Yahweh Before Israel, subtitled Glimpses of History in a Divine Name by Daniel E. Fleming. All right. He quotes from chapter 6 without actually giving us a specific page number, except to say it was chapter 6, and that's okay. So let me continue to actually read what he put up on the screen. The shared quote says, review the question in some detail, concluding, listen to this, y'all, that the consensus of scholarship is certainly correct that Yahweh represents a verbal form with the Y or the letter Yod representing the third masculine singular verbal prefix of the verb Hayah or HYH or Hey Yod Hey in Hebrew, which means to be. I'm going to point that out again. I'm going to read that again for clarity. The consensus of scholarship is certainly correct that Yahweh, as a name, represents a verbal form with the Y representing the third masculine singular verbal prefix of the verb Hayah, to be. The first point of evidence for Lewis is Exodus 3:14, right? The infamous Eye Asher Eye, I am that I am. Then it says, note the recent proposal by Durrell in 2020 to seek a different verb, hey, wav, hey, meaning to destroy. Why did I begin here? Let me explain something to you guys. As all of you know by now, I am an extremely meticulous personality. Don't nothing escape me. As I'm listening to Asar Imhotep's lecture, I'm reading along because after all, he provided a PowerPoint for us to read, which is good, which is why if y'all look at the very, very top of my presentation, you'll see that to the left, right, is fact check and then false. That wasn't me trying to drag the brother or be offensive or ridicule the brother, right? Even though jesting is allowed in debates, you know, we could jest a little bit, right? It was really meant to point out that there were a number of things that he presented in his demonstration that didn't even agree with what he was saying and suggesting. I'm going to say that again. There were a number of things that he said in his presentation, right, that did not agree with the things he presented on the screen. So watch again Exhibit A. And I'll blow this up one more time. And I'm going to dig in and give y'all this work. Watch this. It says, the consensus of scholarship, the book that he's quoting, says that the consensus of scholarship is certainly correct that Yahweh represents a verbal form of the Y representing the third masculine singular verb prefix of the verb Hayah, to be. That's what all Hebrew scholars, all Hebrew linguists, all Hebrew grammarians agree upon. This is why it's stated as the consensus of scholarship is certainly correct. So the book that he's quoting agrees that the way that Hebrew grammarians understand Yahweh, the root of that name to be defined, is absolutely correct. But if y'all notice, and y'all got to look at me now when I say this, when Asar Imhotep presented this on Sarneta's platform, he said, the vast majority of scholars don't know the meaning of the name Yahweh. That's why they're all arguing and they're all debating. Because what the research now shows is that the name Yahweh is rooted in words that mean fire, warfare. Nigga, huh? Said what? What the hell are you saying? It's certainly not what you just showed us. You just showed us a clip that said the consensus of scholarship is certainly correct that Yahweh represents a verbal form with Y representing the third masculine singular verbal prefix of the verb Hayah, to be. The first point of evidence for Lewis is Exodus 3:14. Then the note says, note the recent proposal by Durrell in 2020 to seek a different verb, hey, wav, hey, as to destroy. So as Asar Imhotep is commenting on what he's supposed to be reading, he's not agreeing with what he's reading. In other words, guys, you see, I always tell people, a trick, as in a magic trick or an illusion, the thing that makes an illusion or a magic trick the most effective is that it's dependent upon your ignorance. A magic trick is not effective, an illusion is not effective if you don't have some level of ignorance. Because we all know that there's always a trick to the magic trick. We always know there's an illusion to the illusion. So an illusion and a magic trick needs you to be ignorant of something. Y'all gotta watch these conscious community hustlers, because he's telling the Sonetta platform that the scholarly consensus does not agree that Yahweh comes from a verb which means to be, and that in fact it comes from a verb which means to destroy. But I need y'all to look at the screen, because that's not what he's showing us in the damn book he's quoting. The book he's quoting is saying that the scholarly consensus agrees that Yahweh is rooted in a word which means to be. And a single person by the name of Durrell suggests to seek a different verb which means to destroy. Listen to me carefully when I tell y'all, an illusion and a magic trick depends upon your ignorance. You got to watch these conscious community niggas, because if you look away too long, they're going to get you. Thumb up the video and share it live. I'm just getting started. This is the Tetragrammaton, something that Asar Imhotep did not show, because Asar Imhotep's understanding of biblical Hebrew is remedial at best. So I understand why he did not demonstrate any Hebraic knowledge, because the very position that he holds clearly lets you know that if any understanding that he has of biblical Hebrew, the best we can say and suggest is that it's remedial at most. So I have on the screen, as a language scholar should have, the actual name in question, Yahweh. And you see that it is composed from the past, present, and future tense of the verb to exist, which is Hayah. It's composed of the past, present, and future term of the verb to exist. So when we're reading, right, on some of our high holy days, like Israelites know during Yom Kippur, there's a prayer that we read entitled Adon Olam, right, the master of the world, a prayer that we pray to the Creator. During the Adon Olam, right, one of the sentences, one of the lines that we read is Hu Hayah, Hu Howe, Hu Yeh, meaning he was, he is, he shall be. Hu Hayah, Hu Howe, Hu Yeh. He was, he is, he shall be. Because the name Yahweh is a composition of the past, present, and future tense of the Hebraic verb to exist, which is Hayah. Asar Imhotep wants you to believe that one minority opinion that he quoted, and just to be clear, that is one minority opinion, let's just refer to the slide that he showed himself, because we don't want to be deceptive. Look at the very bottom, y'all, in red, which says to destroy. And look immediately above it. And notice that it contrasts to what he has above, which is the scholarly consensus. The scholarly consensus is this: that Yahweh is from the Hebrew verb hayah, which means to exist or to be. That's the scholarly consensus. But Asar Imhotep wants you to believe that the minority view below is somehow greater than the scholarly consensus even though he tells you that most scholars are disagreeing about what the name means. Y'all gotta watch these conscious community hustlers, y'all. The man is scheming right in front of your face. Shout out to Brother Polite. Here we go. Because I got more for you. Then he does the unthinkable. Oh man, he does the unthinkable. Because if there's any language that I personally rate Asar's Imhotep knowledge of, it's Medu Neter. And in connecting it to various West African languages, such as the Bantu languages. I enjoy those presentations of his. I am not a hater. I am not here to say that he is unintelligent. Even the most intelligent minds can scheme and rob their people. Shout out to Brother Polite. I don't have to come up here and say that he's a low life and has no intelligence. But I am going to come up here and call a spade a spade. So when I noticed that in his presentation, he goes to the Medu Neter, that's when I took my hand off my cup of tea and I did like this. You know, like Birdman. Because I thought I was in for something great. I thought class was in session. Break it down, brother. I'm all ears. Instead, this is what he does. Pay attention to the screen. He shows you the term YHW, right? YHW in the Medu Neter. And he explains that when you go to the hieroglyphic dictionaries, right, that you can see where Yahweh is coming from. And then he says, by matter of linguistics, the idea that the letters M and W can be interchangeable in linguistics not only suggests, but clearly shows and demonstrates how the Hebrew Yahweh came from a much earlier name and earlier root, which is the opposite of what the Hebrews teach, because it actually would represent Yahweh as a god of war, because the name is rooted in war, he says. And to quote him, let's do this. The Egyptian variant, JHM, sounds closer to the Hebrew name Jahim, that is alleged to mean raised up. Raised up. This is very, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Let me keep going. One source argues that it is Arabic and means to light and stir up a fire, to stare with sharp eyes, a pit with blazing fire. The word AJHAM is to mean someone with red eyes. Then he shares some article on wordpress.com. I don't know, somebody's rinky-dinky website, I guess, which is not so scholarly, but it's okay. It's okay, because with the position that he's taken, I expect remedial work. So that's okay. More investigation is needed here. These meanings would fit in nicely with a deity associated with a volcano or storms. See next footnote and compare to Egyptian HM, be burning, be hot, or to burn, without the J prefix. All right. Let's look at the next one. Then he says, and I got to tell y'all, this really lit me up. This part really lit me up. Then he says, we can go to this book. Hold on, let me show you the book. I know it's on the screen, but let me also show you the book. Then he says, y'all, that we can go to this book. Hebrew isms of West Africa. All right. That's Hebrew isms of West Africa. All right, it says we can go to that book. And he cites something in the book that's interesting. Let's read it. The Ashanti Nayame is but another form of the Hebrew Yahweh. Once again, one of the reasons why Asar is doing this in this presentation is because he is harping on the idea that he posits that in linguistics, the M and W are interchangeable. So that the W, which would have been the W in Yahweh, became an M, right, among the Ashanti group in West Africa. What I thought was interesting about Asar sharing this book is how he didn't go into the full quotes. Because the author writing in this book made a comparison between Nayame as a name of the god of the Ashantis of West Africa and Yahweh of the Hebrews to show and demonstrate that the peoples of West Africa have Hebrew origins. So y'all already know that Asar Imhotep's conscious community peers were very upset at him for doing that. Shout out to Brother Ankh, who's currently in an intellectual tussle, they're doing a little tug of war with each other right now, right? I'm sure the likes of the Dagger Squad, I'm sure the likes of Rob Bourne, who argued against me on this very same point that Asar uses to present on Sonata TV. But when I said it, it was incorrect. But yesterday, all of the conscious community that supports Team Kemet clapped when Asar Imhotep showed this presentation along with everything else. But when I pulled out to Rabon, I was wrong. This is what I mean, guys. You got to watch these conscious community hustlers. Because even the peoples in them chat room is loosened off the hook. That's why when I go on those platforms, I go on there as a warrior. I don't walk in the building humble. I don't walk in the building with my head low. I walk in the building with my head high, sword in hand, with blood still on my garment from previous battles. Because I'm not coming here to be friends with nobody in the chat room, so I don't give a goddamn what y'all talking. I ain't coming here to be friends with none of y'all. You against the Bible, I'm against you. How about that? Selective scholarship. That's exactly what you call it. Selective scholarship. So watch this. Asar Imhotep quotes Hebrewisms of West Africa, the same book that I quoted during my sit down with Rob Bourne, in trying to demonstrate to him that Hebrews were in West Africa, so that those of us of the transatlantic slave trade / African diaspora have Hebraic roots that can be seen in West Africa. The conscious community said I was pseudo for it, but last night when Asar Imhotep pointed it out, it was perfectly okay. All right. I told y'all gonna enjoy this. Throw up the video, y'all, and share it live. I promise you, I'm just getting started. He further cites Professor Clay is none other than Dr. Albert Clay, right? And just to be clear, Professor Clay, right, is the person who was cited in this work, right, leaning upon his scholarship to validate and authenticate the connection between the Ashanti god Nayame and the Hebrew term Yahweh. So this same Professor Clay is none other than Dr. Albert Clay, a specialist in Semitic language and cultures at Yale University. He's citing Clay's book, The Empire of the Amorites. He's telling you that the author of Hebrewisms of West Africa is citing Dr. Albert Clay's book, The Empire of the Amorites. He is important because he notes a particular sound correspondence in Semitic that is instructive for us here. In this text, he notes that some Semites use M and others W to represent the same sound. which is why he said, linguistically, the argument is well-founded to establish that Yahweh is of Egyptian origin. And then he goes into wordplay, which is some shit he made up according to Brother Ankh. Because Brother Sarnetta asked Brother Ankh just 2 days ago, so what do you think about Asar Imhotep, man? I know y'all been beefing about the Big Bang Theory and science, man, but he's a scholar, man, when it comes to Kemet and the language. And to quote Brother Ankh verbatim, and y'all already know me, y'all know how I get down. I already got the Kodak moment. I got the audio and the video, so y'all know I'm gonna upload it and go crazy with it on Facebook tomorrow morning. To quote to quote Brother Ankh as a response to Sarnetta, when Sarnetta said, "What you think about Asar Imhotep? I know y'all disagree about science and the Big Bang Theory, but he's a scholar when it comes to Kemet and certainly the Medu Neter." And Brother Ankh said verbatim, y'all, sure, he's a scholar of some shit he made up. Don't get mad at me. Your own big brother said it. So that means even the people that you share intellectual space with, because Asar Imhotep is considered one of the founding members of the Amun-Ra Squad, a group headed by Ankh, and the leader just said openly and publicly that Asar Imhotep is a scholar in Kemetic language. Yeah, some shit he made up. I think that speaks volumes about what your work may really be, because I would want to, I don't know, assume that the people who know you most, the people who know your work the most, are more than likely your peers. And if this is how your peer is addressing your work, I don't know how serious I should be taking you. Just a thought. I don't know. Then he goes to this presentation and this slide here, which I thought again was equally interesting. This presentation is Seth, otherwise known as Sutek, right? Seth in ancient Kemet, right, is a deity, so-called, because remember, Kemet don't got gods, they got deities. Shut y'all stupid asses up. You sound stupid. We don't have gods. We got it's a deity. Do you know that deity means God, you idiot? You substituting words for, shut the hell up. Like, y'all are so like intellectually challenged that you know what? I'm gonna be nice on this live. I'm gonna be live. Let me go back to what I was trying to say. I'm gonna be nice. So again, Seth is considered the god of foreign peoples, in particular the Asiatics. He's considered a god of the deserts, which is the Deshret, the red land, right? Which is a reference to what? Lower Kemet or Lower Egypt, which is the top of Egypt. Because what Asar Imhotep doesn't tell you, and I almost want to say I'm not sure why he didn't tell you, but I'm very sure why he didn't tell you. Since pre-dynastic times, you had Semites in ancient Kemet. In fact, Asiatics, Semitic-speaking people, were in ancient Egypt / Kemet before it was known as ancient Egypt / Kemet. And that's a Snapple fact. Like, you could pop open the Snapple bottle and see at the bottom that Asiatics were in Kemet long before it was called Kemet. In fact, I got something for y'all real quick. Let me pull out one of my goodies real quick. Pull out one of my goodies real quick. Let me show y'all something. You have here what's called the Narmer palette. All right, you got here what's called the Narmer palette. Right, y'all can see how big it is because you see the size of my hand. Right, this ain't small at all, y'all. This is, and you hear the sound it makes, it's heavy, right? All right, I have here, this is a replica of the Narmer palette, right? The Narmer palette shows you that in 3200 BC, a king came from the south by the name of Narmer, defeats the people who are ruling Lower Kemet, which is the top of modern Egypt, and unites Egypt and begins to build an empire. Begins to build a kingdom, because Kemet wasn't in the empire state yet. That's not until the 18th dynasty, the New Kingdom period. But this is the beginning, essentially, of Kemetic kingship. But as Chancellor Williams said, and I do want to point that out real quick, but as Chancellor Williams said, hold on, where we at? But as Chancellor Williams said, can everybody see the screen nice and clear? As Chancellor Williams correctly says, Menes, also known as Narmer, Ethiopian king of kings, leading his army and now fleet to retake northern Ethiopia, he's calling Kemet Ethiopia, from the Asians, later called Lower Egypt, and founding the first dynasty circa 3100 BC. Chancellor Williams, who is one of our great scholars, says in his book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, on page 31, he says, in order for Narmer to unite ancient Kemet, he first had to go to the top. When I say top, I mean modern Egypt today, right? The Deshret, the Red Land, and fight the Asiatics who were ruling Egypt during pre-dynastic times, which not only means that Asiatics were in Egypt since pre-dynastic times, but were ruling major parts of it since pre-dynastic times. Remember, Narmer does not become the king of Egypt to unite Upper and Lower Egypt except before he defeats the Asiatics who were ruling the Deshret, the Red Land, also known as Lower Egypt. Guys, I said it before and I'll say it again. When you're well studied, the work is easy. When you are well studied, the work is easy. Let me also say this to you really quick. So this fella that we have here, Sutek, is associated, I say fella because they can't make up their mind on whether or not they got gods, divinities, deities. So I'm going to just call this guy a fella. So this fella, Sutek, is supposed to be over Asiatics. But Asar Imhotep left something out in his presentation yesterday. He left out that in terms of acknowledging a deity in Egypt, Sutek is the oldest acknowledged deity in ancient Kemet. Oh, y'all hearing me? Should I repeat, rewind, and go back again? Hold on. Sutek, otherwise known as Set, the god over Asiatics, is the oldest quote-unquote deity, god, fellow, whatever they're calling them today, today's Sunday, in ancient Egypt. So, hold on. The oldest nature attested to in ancient Kemet is a nature associated with Asiatics? And this is who you're using to show that we stole from you? Yahweh's association with him? Because if he represents an Asiatic deity, a deity of the Semites, and he himself is the oldest attested deity in Kemet, Asar Imhotep, you're not demonstrating that the name Yahweh came from Egypt. You're demonstrating that the name Sutek, it represents an Asiatic deity, which was the oldest deity in Kemet, which essentially is saying that Asar Imhotep, that Kemet's oldest attested deity, is of Asiatic origin. And this is why I say to you guys time and time again, when you're well studied, the work is easy. When you are well studied, the work is easy. I told y'all this was over some tea this morning. When you well studied, the work is easy. Let's keep it moving. I want everybody to notice the divine standard that the bird is on. Let's do a little meta-lecture real quick, guys. So right where you see, matter of fact, let me make this a little bigger. Right? All right. Right where you guys see my arrow, right? You see this is the single reed leaf, which represents I, right? According to some grammarians, it can represent Y as well, right? The next is the twisted flax, which is H. And then you have a double reed leaf, which is definitely Y, right? So this is supposed to be like Yehi, which he's saying is related to Yahweh. Okay. Then you see that there is a hawk on a standard. So let me just break something down to you guys. While there are many determinatives in ancient Kemet, in the Middle Nature, right, to represent a deity, a god, the divine standard that you see this bird on is one of the oldest. It ranges from pre-dynastic to early dynastic Egypt. It ranges from pre-dynastic to early dynastic Egypt, further authenticating and validating the point that I made that Seth is the oldest attested deity in ancient Kemet. In fact, I got Brother Reggie on video in the museum saying that on his own. And y'all know when I do these videos that are hour and some change, I go back the next day or two and I make little 10 to 15 minute clips. I'm going to include the clip in the museum from my channel where me and Brother Reggie are in the museum and he's showing a vase which has Sutek on it. And he turns around and looks at the camera and says, "This is the oldest attested deity in ancient Kemet." Very interesting. So me being a person who already knew that, I don't know where Brother Reggie was going with it, but I understood something that's called the implications of your statement. Because Sutek or Seth is the god of the Asiatics. He is not a god that the people of ancient Kemet have reverence for. Yes, he's included in the mythology. Yes, he plays a role with the great Necher, great by their standard, I guess, Ra, right? He's accompanied Ra on the boat, right? He's even seen defending Ra, even though they want to tell you that Seth is a wicked deity. But his role on the barge, on the divine barge, the divine boat, what do you think he's defending? Ra. So the god of the Asiatics was needed to defend the chief Egyptian deity, Ra. It's another interesting point, but more on that later. So again, the determinative with the hawk on the standard is a testimony to the antiquity of Sutek. He is earliest attested from pre-dynastic to the early dynastic period. Known fact by real scholars of ancient Kemet. Even though they're going to try their best to finagle their way out of this, because y'all know what they do. When Zion is sitting with Rabbon, we don't read from Hebrewisms of West Africa. That's wrong, that's pseudo. But when Asar Imhotep presents it, they get a standing ovation. So you can't trust these people, y'all. So just pay attention to what I'm sharing, and then make sure you go out and secularly validate all the points that I'm making. Don't trust anybody. Here we go. The next slide that I want to share for you is even more interesting, because it's from a dear past elder who great respect is given to. And that elder's name is Dr. Ben. Oftentimes in the community, people ask questions such as, you know, the elders get the respect, all the respect that they earn and that they deserve. But at one point, right? Do we say that an elder is above correction or edification? What if an elder gave information that is outdated, right? That new scholarship proves is wrong? What if an elder simply just gave bad or wrong information? So Ankh posed this question to Mfudiji and Professor Smalls when Professor Smalls, Mfudiji, and Baba Hiru were on Sarnetta's couch. And Brother Ankh called in and he said, I gotta ask you guys a question, because Ankh disagreed with some of their information. He said, when we feel that the elders are wrong, we respect y'all. How do we go about, bringing edification? What if the elders' information is outdated? And they embraced it, which is wisdom. They didn't shoot him down. They said he was absolutely correct. So with that same energy, I'm hoping we keep. I want y'all to see something real quick. Asar Imhotep put up on the Summer Jam screen that Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen in his book, Black Man of the Nile and His Family, 1972, written in 1972, page 344, asserts that the name Yahweh was a minor ancient Egyptian divinity. I'm going to say it again. Dr. Ben asserts in his book, according to Asar Imhotep, right? We're trusting that this is what's recorded in the book. And I'm not saying that because I disagree with it. I'm saying this is what he's representing in his PowerPoint presentation. All right. So he says that Dr. Ben asserts that the name Yahweh was a minor ancient Egyptian divinity. He traced it to the 26th dynasty, 663 to 527, before the Common Era. However, he does not provide a source for this set of glyphs in his text. By the way, just to be clear, that was him throwing shade at Dr. Ben. Because a lot of the new up-and-coming young guys in the Kemetic community, they dying to be the next Dr. Ben. And it might kill them. Because ego and pride goeth before a great fall. And some of these young men in the conscious community want to be that next guy, HNIC, that next Saber, that next great grandmaster teacher so bad that they make sure to throw shade at some of the current teachers and past elders. You don't have to take my word for it. Look at the videos as they're arguing among one another so you can validate and authenticate that what I'm saying is absolutely true. Let's deal with the claim now. The claim that's posited here is that Yahweh is an Egyptian deity. And let me show you why Dr. Ben was absolutely wrong on that. But aside from going into Black Man of the Nile, which is what Asar Imhotep quoted, I can actually go into another book written by Dr. Ben, because I believe in showing my own work too. On page 61, written in Roman numerals, right? In Dr. Ben's book, We the Black Jews. In Dr. Ben's book, We the Black Jews, page 61 in Roman numerals, Dr. Ben has might be blurry. There we go. Dr. Ben has an image of what he calls Yahweh as the name of an Egyptian deity. Yahweh, with what he claims is the name of an Egyptian deity. All right? Now watch this, y'all. Dr. Ben was absolutely incorrect when he said that. And I understand that it's okay to have bad information. Nobody's perfect. But one thing I was definitely surprised at is why Asar Imhotep repeated the error. Because although and while Dr. Ben made it clear that his students should continue his work and his legacy by learning those things that he himself never learned, chiefly and namely the Medu Neter, Reni Kemet, the language of Kemet, he says Go out and learn Medu Neter. Don't believe me? Ask Saber Reggie, who walked with him. Don't believe me? Ask Grandmaster Mfudiji, who walked with him. Those closest to him will tell you that he told his closest students, go out and continue my legacy, continue my work. Go and learn the things that I did not learn and represent well. One of those things he was referring to is the Medu Neter. So while I understand why Dr. Ben made a mistake in saying that Yahweh in Kemet was an Egyptian deity, I don't understand why Asar Imhotep repeated the error. So let me show you what I'm talking about. When y'all see this, it's going to be as clear as day. I'm now going into my archive, y'all, to pull out a clear, nice clear picture of the name Yahweh as Dr. Ben and now Asar Imhotep emphatically state is of Egyptian origin. And I'm going to show you in the Medu Neter why that's incorrect. And then after you are able to see it for yourself, you got to ask yourself a question. Why are these guys even respected? And when I say these guys, I'm referring to the new bunch, because again, I understand why Dr. Ben is well respected, and I understand why he made an error with this. He didn't know Medu Neter. But Asar Imhotep styles himself as a person that understands it very well, so much so that he's written books on it. So I found it extra interesting that he repeated the error. What am I referring to? Watch this. You guys are going to see a new screen in 30 seconds or less. All right. When you guys can see my screen, type a 1 in the room. When you guys can see my screen, type a 1 in the room. When you see my screen, y'all type a nice 1 in the room. When you guys can see the screen nice and clear, type a 1 in the room. Also, family, thumb up the video and share it live. Thumb up the video and share it live. All right, I'm about to make it big, so don't worry. About to make it big. All right, never worry. About to make it big. So watch this. Starting, guys, from the far left, right? And again, you know, crash course in Medu Neter, 60 seconds or less, let's say. You're looking at a hieroglyphic or Medu Neter inscription, and you're asking yourself, from which direction should I start reading? I don't know. I'm new to this language, right? So Medu Neter is read from the direction that things are facing. So if you notice, to the far right is a seated deity, right? That's a determinative for Neter or God. So whomever this name is the name of a god. He's facing left. You look further up at the quail chick, or, you know, the baby chicken, and you notice that it's also facing left. So that means you should start the reading of this inscription from the left to the right. All right, crash course. You're looking at the first symbol to the far left, which is a single reed leaf, which can be an I or a Y. Then you're looking at the twisted flax in the middle. Then you're looking at the quail chick. So in other words, you have YHW. Sometimes the quail chick is also a vowel where it means ooh. In fact, oftentimes, when the quail chick is anywhere other than the last symbol, it usually represents a W. At the end, it almost always represents a vowel, ooh, right? But in this case, it's rendered W, for whatever reason, let's say. So you have YHW, which if we add phonetics or vowels, can easily be Yahweh. But the Egyptians also added something to this. They added a divine standard, and on top of it, the kasut glyph. Let me show you. The divine standard is this right here that you saw the hawk on earlier. And remember I said to you, it's in the earliest periods of Egypt, pre-dynastic to early dynastic Kemet, that this divine standard is used as a determinative for a necher. So it lets you know that whatever deity this is supposed to represent is a deity that goes all the way back to the early dynastic, if not even pre-dynastic Egypt, which validates and authenticates Hebrew tradition. Yahweh wasn't born yesterday. It also crushes Asar Imhotep's pseudo point, and I gotta call a spade, when he made associations between the name Yahweh as used among the Canaanites. The Canaanites are predominantly as a nation state or as nation states. Like the children of Israel, they're an Iron Age people, right? Their history is attested during the Iron Age, all right? Now, the divine standard goes all the way back to the late Bronze Age period, right? The late 4th millennia BC. The late 4th millennia BC. The late 3000s, 3200 BC, 3100 BC, 3000 BC, the late 4th millennia BCE. So it's letting you know that whoever this deity is goes back before Kemet was even a people. So Asar, I'm not sure if you're paying attention to what I would draw to your attention once again, that Yahweh, the name Yahweh, even predates Kemet being a people. There is no name Kemet in pre-dynastic Egypt. There is no people called Kemet in early dynastic or pre-dynastic Egypt. But you're pointing out the name Yahweh, which just based on the symbols, the Medu Neter, shows that it's a early dynastic and pre-dynastic deity, which you're pointing out by implication of Asar Imhotep, which means you're actually hustling backwards, is that Yahweh precedes even the formation of the nation state of Kemet and even the name Kemet, as it did not exist in the early dynastic or pre-dynastic period. So shout out to you for saying it. Double shout out to me for pointing it out and emphasizing it. I told y'all, throw up the video and shit alive. We're going to have fun with this. Now let me show you something again. In looking at the Medu Neter here once more, you'll notice something significant. On top of the divine standard here, you see a hill, a mountain range. That mountain range is called in the Medu Neter Kasut. Kasut. And it is translated as foreigners or foreigner. It's translated as foreigners or foreigner. So what am I saying? Asar Imhotep, when you pointed out the name Yahweh as being an ancient Egyptian deity, and you even tried to get Dr. Ben to co-sign it, even though Dr. Ben freely admitted he don't do Medu Neter. So with all respect to him, his co-sign on the language only goes but far. But you are supposed to know the language, so we're counting on you to know something. So why didn't you tell the people, Asar Imhotep, that the mountain range on top of the divine standard represents a foreigner, which means even the people of Kemet knew that Yahweh was a deity foreign to the Egyptians. How could Yahweh be of Egyptian origin and the Egyptians themselves attach the foreign determinative to his name, indicating that he's a foreign deity? He is not native to ancient Egypt. In other words, young man, you killed yourself. In other words, son, go back to the drawing board and try it again. I told y'all, the work is easy when you're well studied. The work is easy when you're well studied. Why y'all sending me emails this morning? Zion, look, you gotta go watch Asar's presentation. He said Yahweh is from. Guys, I told y'all I offer classes. The fact that you're bothered by that, you gotta get in class, which been in session for the longest. What y'all worried about? This is a morning coffee break. Unraveling this. This is some sort of enigma to y'all? Zion, did you see his presentation? No, I didn't. I was enjoying my Saturday night. I hope you was. Y'all glued to YouTube on Saturday night? Well, goddamn. I'm thankful that I don't have that kind of life. I got a real life. No, I wasn't checking for what they doing on YouTube. I don't do that. I got a real life. Nor am I bothered by people who are said to be real scholars and do sloppy scholarship. Because once again, if Yahweh is an Egyptian deity, then when the Egyptians went to go write his name in the Medu Neter, why did they add the hieroglyph indicating that this is a foreign deity, not native to Egypt? In other words, son, you killed yourself on live TV. That's called suicide. So from this point onward, you seem to survive. You might have 9 lives, but we're putting you on suicide watch. I want the Israelites in the community, when y'all go on Soneta's channel, after watching this video in full, make sure y'all comment in the comment section that Asar Imhotep is on suicide watch because he killed himself several times, and apparently, like the cat that's revered in ancient Egypt, he got more than 9 lives. So we're going to put you on suicide watch, son, in the hopes that you don't succeed in actually killing yourself. There we go. So back to my presentation. If y'all enjoying this video, family, thumb up the video and share the live. Thumb up the video and share the live. I keep telling you, I say it once, I say it again. The work is easy when you're well studied. What the hell are we worried about? Then Asar Imhotep does something which is ludicrous. He pulls up the work of a person named Niv Allen, right? Niv Allen is an associate curator in the Department of Egyptian Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. You mean the same museum that Zion Lexx does several museum tours in? You mean the same museum, Asar Imhotep, that I've been to, held more tours? In fact, Asar Imhotep, you've never toured it with nobody. You were a member of a greater tour, don't think I forgot, during the Kemetic War Conference, when Baba Mfudiji brought everybody through the museum. Not you. You was a looker-on in the museum. I was a tour guide. So now you're bringing up the curator from a museum that I regularly and often do tour guides on, especially in the Egyptian department? And y'all emailing me telling me I should be bothered by this? I've been there more times than this guy got PDFs. Watch this, man. Niv Allen is an associate curator in the Department of Egyptian Art at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where he focuses on the display and interpretation of Ramesside art dating from 1295 to 1070 BC, and of textual objects throughout Egyptian history. He earned his MA from the Hebrew University, Jerusalem in Biblical Studies, and his PhD in Egyptology from Yale University. You know what I find interesting, guys, if I could just say this? I'm not going to say the white card on this one, right? Because that's played, right? Zion talking about we quoting white scholars. So what? Scholarship is scholarship. Yeah, you're right. Scholarship is scholarship. But y'all said there's a difference between chematology and Egyptology. But y'all said there's a difference between chematology and Egyptology. But all we see y'all doing is quoting Egyptology to validate and authenticate your ideas, points, and maybe even agendas. But if we dare to quote Egyptology, you tell us that's Egyptology. It's not Kemet from Kemet's perspective. It's Egyptology. I need y'all to look at the screen right now and notice that the scholar he's quoting got a PhD in Egyptology from Yale University. The same Egyptology they make a difference of and continually tell us that does not represent Kemet. So I find there are many changing faces to be quite descriptive of the feces. You know what? I'm gonna be nice. Here we go. Because when you pull your head out your ass, feces is in so many discombobulated ways and phases all over your face that as you turn, you look like you got many faces. Oh, okay. Here we go. Niv Allen says Seth is Baal, and he says that there's evidence from the Egyptian script. This is interesting because Asar Imhotep is bringing us here to validate that Yahweh is of Egyptian origin. But the person that he's quoting is actually saying that Seth is Baal. I need y'all to pay attention to the way things are presented. If Seth is the origin of Baal, he would have said Baal is Seth. Notice Niv Allen, who has a PhD in Egyptology from Yale, says that Seth is Baal. So he's making Seth, as represented in Egypt, once again of Asiatic origin, not vice versa. But y'all allowing Asar Imhotep to talk over what he's presenting on the screen, even though what he's presenting disagrees with what he's saying. And to just show you how serious I mean that, I was taking notes this morning as I was reading it. Asar Imhotep quote says Canaan was part of the United States of Kemet. Sutek and Apep is the origin of Yahweh. Yahweh is the personification of storm and volcanoes. Wait on it, guys, because I got the article where he got that from. And it's a Jewish article. And they didn't write the article, submit the article, share the article to invalidate Yahweh being of Hebraic origin. They wrote it to share a developed understanding of Yahweh. They freely shared it. My question is, why did Asar Imhotep attempt to present that as it was his own unique idea without quoting Haaretz, the Jewish website that he got it from? Wait on it, I'm going to show you. So hold on. He says Yahweh is the personification of Set and Zeus. He also says the Bible is full of folk etymology. Okay. This is a guy who calls himself, you know what, I'm not going to start. Biblical writers made up Hebrew words. Ooh, okay. The same Hebrew words you're using to make emphatic statements in the direction of academia, you're using the work of, okay, wherever you, okay, to each his own. Yahweh is an actual volcano. Nigga, what? Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah destroyed by volcanoes. Okay, all right. Let me get to the real stuff that he pointed out. I thought it was really interesting. He quotes scholars that agree with his position only. Let me say something to you guys really quick. If you are a scholar and you're presenting academic work, everyone knows in college, even in academia, the halls of academia, when you present a dissertation, your work, You are not supposed to exclusively and solely quote those sources that agree with you. You're also supposed to quote the sources that disagree with you. We cannot call it a scholarly work, and it is missing the counter rebuttal or the counter view. Should I say that again for y'all? We cannot call the work a scholarly work. I'm quoting your counter review right now. If the counter view is not present. In other words, if you're trying to establish a point as being true and factual, and you're citing sources as to why it's true and factual, you cannot only cite the sources that agree with your point. You have to also cite the sources that disagree with your point so that the audience that you're sharing it with can weigh the information and judge for themselves. Otherwise, you're just making shit up like Brother Ankh told you. All right. Let me go again. I also have another quote from him. I wrote down, he draws conclusions that are not founded in the very academic sources that he's quoting. Why did I say that? Because I showed you several times over that he's showing things on the screen and then going against it while still proving to you that it agrees with what he's saying. Let me say it again. I wrote as a note that Asar draws conclusions that are not founded in the very academic sources that he's quoting. Why did I write that down in my notes? Because Asar is showing things on the screen, then telling you that it agrees with what he's saying, then he changed the narrative and disagrees with what's on the screen. Remember, I said something to you earlier. A magic trick and an illusion is only effective if you have some degree of ignorance. So if y'all not paying attention, the magic trick is effective. The illusion is effective. The wool is fully over your eyes. Y'all being hoodwinked out here. All right? Now watch this. Baal, who is well known by the name Baal Hadu from the text found at Ugarit, appears originally as an epithet of the god Hadad, whose cult had begun to spread in the ancient Near East as early as the 3rd millennia BCE. Baal has characteristics of the god Hadad, who was known throughout the region for his violent and fierce attributes. But the former also has local attributes associating him strongly with fertility, and as such comprises both revival and growth on the one hand and withering and decay on the other. So essentially, Niv Allen, the Yale University PhD Egyptologist that he's quoting, is not saying that Baal is really the deity Set. As you saw in the previous slide that Asar himself showed, he said Seth is Baal, not the other way around. Dodo, the hell is wrong with you? The hell was you drinking when you was making your presentation? You wrote the shit all backwards, you big ass dummy. You should have said he's saying Baal is Seth, but then that would have been a lie because that's not what he said. So I'm glad that you told the truth. But let's emphasize that the truth is the person you're quoting said Seth as worship in Egypt is really Baal, not the other way around. So even the scholar you're quoting is presenting an Asiatic origin for Seth, or as you say, Yahweh. Kill shot. Evidently, Baal was known in Egypt as early as the 13th dynasty, although possibly by his former name as Hadad. Moreover, the Seth Baal cult in Avaris continued to exist throughout the Hyksos period into the New Kingdom, as the temples of Seth of Avaris was functioning continuously until the Ramesside period. According to the 400-year stela, what did I just read? According to the 400-year stela, wait, what did I just read? According to the 400-year stela, it began to function already some 70 years before the Hyksos period. Asar Imhotep cites the 400-year stela, That's interesting. The identification between Baal and Seth was so successful, not only because of the latter's role as the god of the foreign lands, but also through his storm god characteristics. Let me just show y'all something that's called sleight of hand. It's part of magic tricks. Asar Imhotep just showed you guys that Niv Allen, the Egyptologist with a PhD, said that Seth is Baal. And he quotes him. Then, in Asar's own presentation, he switches the order. And he says the identification between Baal and Seth was so successful. Let me just tell y'all something real quick. In magic tricks, there's something called sleight of hand. And what that means is, if you niggas ain't watching, somebody gonna get you. I'm just giving the more colloquial term, right? That was one of the most fascinating demonstrations of sleight of hand that I've seen recently on Sonata TV. Because he just quoted a source that said that Seth in Egypt is Baal. 2 slides later, he skillfully, through wordplay, puts Baal first and Seth latter to show that Baal is of Sethian origin. That's called in Magic Kitties sleight of hand. But unlike everybody else, you busted. I'm meticulous. I caught you. The identification between Baal and Seth was so successful, not only because of the latter's role as the god of foreign lands, but also through his storm god characteristics, which are common to both gods. By the way, let me just make something clear to you guys. You guys do know that there's more problems with Asar Imhotep's designation of Yahweh with Seth for more reasons than one. And let me point out some of those reasons. You see storms, you can find lightning, right? But you also find rain. You know, that thing that ancient Kemet really lacked. The reason why the Iteru or the Hapi River, the Nile River, was revered by the Egyptians, the annual inundation flooding of the Nile River is what watered Kemet. Kemet rarely experienced rains. Even storms were not conclusively consistent throughout ancient Egypt. To see a storm in ancient Kemet was a phenomenon. It was a rarity. So why the hell could that be of Egyptian origin? It's rightly of Asiatic origin, because in Asiatic lands, they're well watered with rain. They don't have the Nile River. They depend on rain and storms to feed their flocks, which is why in many neighboring Semitic and Canaanite nation states, there is this fascination with a deity either known as Baal or a number of names in the Levant and Mesopotamia via his association with rain and storm, because it is aboriginal to their lands, not to Kemet. The fact that Seth is a god of storms, and storms is a rarity in Kemet, further concludes what the scholarly consensus is, as the person you just quoted said, that Seth's origin is not ancient Kemet. He's a storm god, you big dummy. Kemet don't see storms like that. Certainly not like in Levant and Mesopotamia. You's a big ass dummy. Watch this. Let me keep going. but also through the storm god, but also through the identification between Baal and Seth was so successful, not only because of the latter's role as the god of the foreign lands, but also through his storm god characteristics, which are common to both gods. The depth of syncretism is indicated by the fact that most of the attestations of the name Baal in Egyptian texts are classified with the Seth sign. But it wasn't just Baal who was identified with Seth, but also Seth was identified with Baal. In a clear case of cultural appropriation, Asar says. This is interesting, Asar. 44, or an enrichment of the Seth concept. It would seem, now he goes into quote, it would seem that the foreign god Baal, who was regarded as a manifestation of Seth, because the latter is the lord of four foreign countries, is now encroaching the Egyptian concept of Seth with a new function. I want everybody to pay attention to the form of Set on the picture. I want you to also keep in mind that 400-year stela that Asar Imhotep spoke of in the previous slide that we're going to go into in a couple of moments. Does everybody notice that Seth, the Egyptian god, has fringes hanging from his garments? Does everybody notice that Seth, the Egyptian god, Asar Imhotep says is of Egyptian origin, who he says is really the Yahweh of the Bible? Do you notice that in the Egyptian representation of the Yahweh in the Bible, or as he says, Seth, he's wearing fringes? So how the hell is he of Kemetic origin and he's wearing Hebrew fringes? Somebody please put Asar Imhotep on suicide watch, because he killed himself again. And apparently he survived. So we got to put him on suicide watch. Because if the god Seth is really the god Yahweh, or if Yahweh is really the god Seth, then why is he wearing Hebrew fringes? Fringes worn throughout Mesopotamian cultures. This is not of Egyptian culture. Everybody knows that, you big dummy. So if Seth is of Egyptian origin, and he's really the god Yahweh, and Yahweh is of Egyptian origin, then why do we see Seth wearing fringes? You know, the same fringes that we see in Hebrew and Semitic/Asiatic culture. Use a whole jackass. In the words of DJ Khaled, congratulations, you played yourself. Watch this, y'all. Asar Imhotep, a couple slides ago, referenced the 400-year stela when talking about Seth. And y'all heard me say, the 400-year stela? You mean the same stela that when I asked Brother Reggie if he knew about it on Sonida's platform, he said he never even heard of it? All of a sudden now, Asar Imhotep is discussing it, even though I was the first one to bring it out on the public platform. All of a sudden, you want to go to the 400-year stela? What you talking about, Asar? You talking about this stela? You talking about the one that I have? That's what you talking about? You talking about the 400-year stela that I have? If you look at my finger in the photo, I'm pointing on the line right below the glyph that mentions 400 years. You talking about that stela? No. You couldn't be talking about this stela, are you? What y'all telling me I should be worried about these guys for? What, they gonna mention something I'm not aware of? These guys showing pictures and quoting books. I'm holding replicas of the artifacts. We different. These guys are inside on a computer. I'm outside with it. Please stop comparing me to these guys. We are not the same. Interesting. So he brings up the 400-year Stella, which if you look at the very, very top left, you see the deity Set dressed in Asiatic garb, even though he wants to convince us he's really Egyptian. Okay. My hand or my finger in this picture is right below the glyph that describes the 400 years, showing and demonstrating that I definitely do Medu Neter. Let's be clear on that. All right. Also, if you look over here, you see the Nisut Biti glyph. Let me put my pointer on the screen. You see the Nisut Biti glyph. And right next to that is the Sutek name inside of the Shenu, also known as a royal cartouche. Guys, I keep telling y'all, when you're well studied, the work is easy. Please don't email me. Please don't message me telling me that another person in the conscious community said something about the Bible. And y'all are so worried about it. Nobody in the Israelite community is saying nothing against it. You got to come out. We looking bad out here. You could do the work yourself. I offer classes all week. What, y'all just gonna wait for me to do a YouTube video? Why not jump into class and learn how to do the work yourself? That way you're not bothered. Because when you're well studied, the work is easy. Watch this. This is a representation of what is called in ancient Kemet a shasu. And just like the deity Seth or Sutek in ancient Egypt, you see him having Israelite fringes on. You know, these Johns. What y'all say in the South? These Johns? I'm from New York, so I'm being funny right now. We just say these joints. These joints. In New York, we say these joints. But I know in the South, and I'm starting to enjoy y'all Southern hospitality and y'all Southern lingo. In the South, y'all say Johns. So what you talking about? These Johns right here? These Johns? Because this is the look of Asiatics. So, you big ass dummy, if Seth is really an Egyptian deity, then I ask you once more, why is he featured wearing fringes that the Asiatics, the Semitic people, and the Hebrews wore? All right. Now, I'm going to stop my presentation for a moment, guys, to go into a quick commercial break. When I go into that commercial break, guys, I will be back to show you all the sources Asar Imhotep used in his presentation that he did not give the credit to. And there's probably a reason why he didn't give them credit, because while some of the things that they said he presented, the conclusions they arrived at disagreed with his conclusions, which is why I wrote as a notation once again that Asar draws conclusions that are not founded in the very academic sources that he's quoting. So when we come back from our quick commercial break, guys, I'm going to take y'all to the source that Asar Imhotep is using. Be right back.
Still haven't tried the Locklicious all-natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it fills, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.
If you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these two books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben-Levi, popularly known as Zion Lexx. This is a masterpiece.
All right. We are back with that work. All right, y'all. Let me show you really quick where Asar Imhotep got the bulk of his presentation from. He didn't tell you, but I'm gonna show you. It was an easy find, because I know what these guys do. They don't always do real scholarship. And Asar, he's one of those people that I regard as a scholar. But even scholars get lazy and sloppy at times. And he was definitely lazy and sloppy. And I'm definitely about to show you. Well, you guys can see my new screen, type of 1 in the room as we are about to go to work. The real work starts here. When you guys can see my new screen, type of 1 in the room as we are about to go to work. Let me put some tea inside my cup. All right, make the screen bigger so y'all can see. And I'm gonna scroll up so y'all can see what I'm talking about, because Asar Imhotep's presentation came from a Jewish website called Haaretz, which means in Hebrew, the land. Now, of course, he didn't want to tell y'all that because it would have brought you to the source of his argument. And then you would have saw that the source of his argument doesn't have the same conclusions that he has. So you're going to realize that he's being what his own brother says, Ankakek. He's pseudo and just making shit up. So watch this, y'all. There's an article written in a Jewish website called Haaretz entitled Jewish God Yahweh originated in Canaanite Vulcan, says New Theory. So that automatically tells you why Asar Imhotep did not actually show you where his information was coming from. Because if you would have saw where his information was coming from, you would see that they don't have the same conclusions that he does. They're positing that the name Yahweh is argued in some sense to be related to Canaanite culture of volcanoes. That certainly was brought out in this article. Whether or not that's actual and factual and sound is a different story. But they definitely mention that in the article. But they also mention at the very top of the article, as in the title, Jewish God Yahweh originated in Canaanite Vulcan. I'm not sure for those of you who are watching the live last night. Asar Imhotep, at the end of his presentation, in the most pompous way, his gestures, his mannerisms, the little smirks, he felt as if he gave the fireproof presentation. Even though I'm hosing this shit all the way down with ease right now. I'm sub-zero in this PowerPoint presentation he thought was fireproof. I'm hitting that shit with all kind of sub-zeros, right? What he does is very interesting, right? He posits that Yahweh is of Egyptian origin. Then he goes into a theory that was presented in a Jewish website, but purposely doesn't take you to the source, so you can't see that the source and what they presented don't share the conclusions that he have, because the source that he presented believes that Yahweh is of Canaanite origin, of the Levant, of the land of Israel, not of Egypt. So that's why he didn't show you the source. But I'm about to show you the source. Let's read together and let's enjoy. Thumb up the video and share it live. If you're enjoying the information, donate to the platform. Support what we got going. Every time they come with a hard, heavy hitter, I'm going to step up to the plate and knock their ass clean out. Every time that conscious community come out with a hard, heavy hitter, with the information, nothing personal. I don't do personal attacks. I'm going to knock their ass clean out with the information. And the way you can support me in the Israelite community is by doing just that, supporting me. So here we go. The cult of Yahweh as God of metallurgy originated among semi-nomadic copper smelters between the Bronze and Iron Age, suggests biblical scholar, and he was not worshipped only by Jews. Let me just give you guys the spoiler before we even get there. One of the other reasons why Asar Imhotep doesn't take you to the source of the information that he's telling you that Yahweh is a volcano, right? Is because they literally said in the source work that he's quoting that Yahweh wasn't worshipped only by Jews, Israelites. He was worshipped by neighboring Asiatic and Semitic speaking populations. That's what the author says in the subtitle. And you can see it right here. I'm going to highlight it. And he was not worshipped only by Jews. As we dig down further in the article, they're going to show you all of the attestations that show you that other Semitic speaking people that the Bible itself mentions also worship Yahweh. They're not talking about Egypt though. So why does Asar Imhotep take you here? It's called sleight of hand. It's a magic trick. Watch this. Archaeologists uncover, I'm going to read what's to the right. Archaeologists uncover remains of the Edomite copper production facility on the so-called Slaves Hill in Timnah. The dark stones that cover most of the site are slag left over from the smelting process. Timnah, let me give the name of the publishing article. Ariel David. Timnah around 3200 year BC. Meet the European Egyptologist that Asar Imhotep was using and passing as his own information. All right. Around 3200 years ago, the great empires around the Mediterranean and Middle East suddenly imploded. The Egyptians retreated from Canaan and the copper mines of Timnah in the Negev, skulking back to the banks of the Nile. And in the arid wastes of southern Canaan, a new power arose. The Timnah mines were taken over by semi-nomadic tribes which set up a mining operation that dwarfed the previous Egyptian industry. This new desert kingdom would leave its mark on the main building at Timnah, the Egyptian temple of Hathor, protector of miners. The new masters smashed the effigy of the Egyptian deity, leaving the fragments to be found by archaeologists more than 3,000 years later, and set up over the ruins of the temple a tent sanctuary. Judging by the remains of heavy red and yellow fabric found in the 1970s. There they worshiped a new god, one that had no apparent name or face. That miner's god was none other than the deity known by the 4 Hebrew letters, Yod, He, Wav, He. All right? Yod, He, Wav, He. And just to be clear, I saw somebody come in here and say source, which I automatically took as a troll, because at the top of the article I shared you the source, and I even said this is the source of Asar's presentation. This is not my information. This is the source of Asar's presentation that he didn't want to share with you because it doesn't share the conclusions that he gave you. But I'm going to show you the whole picture. That miner's god was none other than the deity by the 4 Hebrew letters Yod, He, Wav, He, who would become the God of the Jews and by extension of Christians and Muslims, claims Nassim Amzalag of Biblical Studies Research at Ben Gurion University. Okay. According to Amzalag, long before becoming the deity of the Israelites, Yahweh was a god of metallurgy in the ancient Canaanite pantheon. Again, this is why Asar Imhotep didn't take you here, because the author doesn't posit an Egyptian origin, he posits a Levantine origin, a Canaanite origin, not an Egyptian origin. Worshipped by smelters and metalworkers throughout the Levant, not just by the Hebrews. His theory is not exactly widely accepted, but has recently been gaining traction. Roughly from the 19th century, biblical scholars began looking at scriptures less as records of divine revelations and more as historical and literary documents. This has led, for example, to the so-called documentary hypothesis, which considers, by the way, notice how it's being framed, the so-called documentary hypothesis. It's being framed that way because the author is throwing shade on the validity of it, just to be clear. Which considers the Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible, to be a compilation from multiple sources, each provided by different authors with their own beliefs and agendas. But mysteries remain. Where did the Yahweh cult originate? Who were the first people to worship him? And how did he end up being the sole deity of a group called Israel, who, as their very name says in Hebrew, didn't even start out as a Yahwistic people, but as followers of El, the main god of the Canaanite pantheon? Question. Now, in Asar Imhotep's presentation, he drew analogies between the Exodus, talking about Mount Sinai being, covered in smoke and fire and brimstone. And he says that you see that in a volcano, right? And then he said the lightning that you see on Mount Sinai in Exodus 19 and 20 is because of the sulfur. When it interacts with an active volcano, it can cause lightning. But Asar, why don't you show the source for what you were saying so we could examine what the source said in totality without hearing your interpretation secularly? If you're going to quote a source, quote them entirely. That's what I'm saying. Most scholars already believe that the cult of Yahweh first emerged somewhere in the southern Levant, partly based on the Egyptian texts from the late 2nd millennia BCE. These documents describe groups of Canaanite nomads collectively known as Shasu. You know, the same Shasu I just showed you? So watch this. Most scholars already believe that the cult of Yahweh first emerged somewhere in the southern Levant, partly based on Egyptian texts from the late 2nd millennia BCE. So, if I could point this out to you guys for a moment, the other reason why Asar Imhotep failed to show you the source of the information he was giving you is because of what the source said. It said most scholars already believe that the cult of Yahweh first emerged somewhere in the southern Levant. That's the land of Canaan. And this is partly based on Egyptian texts. So it's the actual Egyptian literature that validates that Yahweh is not of Egyptian origin, and in fact of Levantine origin. Which is why I say to you, you got to watch these conscious hustlers in the community and their sleight of hand. Because he purposely doesn't share the source with you that he gets the bulk of his information from, because the source doesn't agree with the weird conclusions that he makes up. And I could, say that because his own peers are charging him with that. His own leader, Ankh of the Amun-Ra squad, was recently asked to comment on Asar's scholarship, and he told Sarnetta, yeah, he's the master of that shit he made up. Asar, referring back to my notes, draws conclusions that are not founded in the very academic sources that he's quoting. Because he purposely doesn't show the source of the information, because the source not only disagrees with Egypt being the origin of Yahweh, but it even says Egyptian text literature validate that Yahweh is of Levantine origin, not Egypt. And that's why Asar Imhotep didn't share with you where he got his source from, because his source doesn't agree with his pseudo conclusions. But he'll attempt to woo and move you with information he knows most of you never heard, in an attempt to pull the wool over your eyes, or what I call sleight of hand. Let's continue reading. Throw up the video, family, and share the live. Let's get this notifications out there. These documents describe groups of Canaanite nomads collectively known as Shasu, including one tribe named the Shasu of Yahweh, perhaps the first recorded Yahweh worshippers in history. Not in Egypt, in Canaan. The Bible itself may contain a memory of this southern origin of Yahweh, as it tells us explicitly that God came from Teman. That's in the book of Habakkuk, chapter 3, verse 3. Or that he went out of Seir and marched out of Edom, Judges 5, verses 4 through 5. Something that we now know through the historical record as being true, that some of the earliest attestations of the Yahweh worship being coming from the region of Edom is consistent with what the Bible's saying. Even though Asar is trying to pass this off as the biblical scholars trying to hide and cover this up. How, Sway? They put it in the book. How, Sway? It got chapters and verses behind it. How, Sway? You hustling backwards. But I caught you. All toponyms associated with the area ranging from Sinai to the Negev and northern Arabia. Everybody recognizes these southern origins of Yahweh, but most scholars stop there. Amzalak says, this forms the basis of my theory as well, but I take it a step further. Reading between the lines, the Bible contains clues pointing to an original identity for Yahweh as a metrical deity, he says. In the Bible, Yahweh's appearance is usually accompanied by volcanic-like phenomena. When he descends upon Mount Sinai to reveal the Torah to the Jews, the mountain erupts in fire, spewing lava and billowing clouds accompanied by earthquakes and thunderstorms. In antiquity, metallurgical deities like the Greek Hephaestus or his eponym Roman equivalent Vulcan were associated with volcanic descriptions, which closely mirror the smoke, fire, black slag, and molten red metal produced in a smelting process. Guys, that's exactly what Asar Imhotep shared with you on Sarneta's platform, except he didn't tell you where he got it from, because then you would have read the full article to see that not only does it disagree with his position of Egypt being an origin for Yahweh, but the very article he's using and passing off as his own scholarship is saying Yahweh is of Levantine origin. Caught you with your hand in a cookie jar. Ain't that a damn shame? You too grown of a man to have your hand in the cookie jar. Get your fat ass out that damn jar. There we go. Poetic metaphors throughout the Bible describe Yahweh as a fiery deity who makes the mountains smoke and melts them down, just like smelters melt down ore to obtain copper and other metals, the researcher notes. In fact, In Psalms 18:18, Yahweh is depicted as an anthropomorphized furnace. Smoke rose from his nostrils, consuming fire came from his mouth, burning coals blazed out of it. To ancient people, the process of melting down rocks to extract metal would have appeared completely pre-natural and required a divine explanation. Yahweh's metallurgical attributes were also on display in the pillar of fire and smoke by which he guides the Hebrews in the desert. Exodus 13:21. Guys, while you're reading this article with me, I need you to also pay attention to not just the information shared, but the biblical quotations. Because it's the same information and same biblical quotations that Asar shared without actually showing you where it came from. Because again, if you went to where it actually came from, you would know that the conclusions he arrived at does not agree with what the source is ultimately saying. The description of this tent bears remarkable similarities to sanctuary in Timnah, further suggesting that 3,000 years ago, this place may have been dedicated to the worship of Yahweh. Guys, I could go on and on and on. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw a link here in the chat room. Save that link, y'all. Open that link and save it. That's the source that Asar Imhotep used in his presentation. I don't care what he comes and tells you in his next video. That's the source that he uses in his next presentation. All right? Now, let me show you something that Asar Imhotep also failed to do. Because apart from Asar Imhotep wanting to convince you that Yahweh is of Egyptian origin, he even tried to go into the linguistics of the name to posit that Yahweh is an Egyptian name, even though I showed you that the people of Egypt themselves say it's a foreign name. But now I'm going to go into academia that has something to say about the etymological and linguistic name Yahweh and what part of the world and among what people it has linguistic relationship to. Watch this. When you guys can see my new screen, just type a 1 in the building. When you can see my new screen, just type a 1 in the building. I'm putting right now a link to the article that I'm sharing with you. The source of the article is from a book from Jeremy Black entitled The Assyrian Dictionary of the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago, a concise dictionary of Akkadian. Remember, Akkadians are Semitic-speaking people. It's a Semitic population, and they are Semitic-speaking people. The Akkadian Empire comes in the world scene at the same time that Kemet has her oldest literature. You know, the pyramid texts that date back to the Pyramid of Unas, you know, the 2300s. That's when the Akkadians come on the world scene. Now watch this. Again, I want to first take you to the very end of the article because you know they want to see sources and we want to give sources. So the source for this article that I'm sharing with you, the reference came from a concise dictionary of Akkadian by Jeremy Black. The Assyrian Dictionary of the Oriental Institute of the University of Chicago. And I've been there. I have video and pictures from the Oriental Institute of Chicago. Go right on my Facebook page, go right on my YouTube page and see me right in the Oriental University in Chicago. When I made my very first trip to Chicago 2 years ago, I documented it with video, audio and video, as well as taking pictures. All right, so this came from Jeremy Black. Now let's go to the actual contents of the article. Because when we're doing scholarship, there's something called comparative study, right? So if Asar Imhotep's position is that the name Yahweh is of Egyptian origin, then what he needed to do, because it's scholarly to do, is to not only show why he believes it's of Egyptian origin, but he should also and equally go into the Sumerian and Akkadian Near Eastern records and literature, which also posit that Yahweh has origin linguistically there, so as to demonstrate why it's not of Sumerian / Akkadian or Mesopotamian origin. But instead, all Asar Imhotep does, and I'm referring to my notes once more, quotes scholars that agree with his position only, never quotes the counter rebuttal or the opposing arguments and positions, only quotes the scholars that agree with him. That's not scholarship. Scholarship is you're presenting information before a peer review, before a body that is well respected, or even before the people. And while your premise is to demonstrate that your argument is sound and true, you need to also demonstrate why any counter view to your argument may not be true or is not true. And you failing to do that is poor scholarship and sloppy of you. Yahweh, Jehovah in German, where the J sounds like a Y, means power of Yahoo in Akkadian. By the time of the return of the Babylonian exiles in 530, the Common Era, Yahweh was treated as a deity name in its own right. Akkadian grammar was apparently forgotten by those in Israel. Yahweh is mistranslated in the English Hebrew scriptures as Lord. Yahoo has a variety of spellings because its two letters, Yod, He, are dual use in Akkadian. And He is actually a slurred glottal stop represented by the letter Ayin. Additionally, the vowel sound for Yod, I, and He, E, were often indistinguishable during the alphabetic Akkadian era. The Yahoo variants are found in ancient texts ranging from the Levant to Italy and can be located using the alphabetic Akkadian lexicon. 1. IH or YH, Akkadian IH, the god Ihu or Yahoo. 2. Akkadian I, the god Iu. 3. IA, Akkadian Iya, the god Iau. E, Akkadian E, the god Iu. Aya, Akkadian Aya, the god Aya, after 800 before the Common Era, as U ending started to be dropped and Ayin became dual use with A. In proper Akkadian grammar, dual use letters are vowels when they begin or end a word as a grammatical ending and a consonant in the middle of the word. Alphabetic Akkadian has no inner vowels. An Akkadian noun typically has a U ending, but by the time of the Aramaic and Hebrew, around 600 before the Common Era, the noun ending U was commonly being dropped. The letter Ayin represented by an apostrophe. It is a glottal stop as found in OO. It is often slurred, producing a soft ha sound. This is seen in many Akkadian words such as sa'u or sha'u, meaning oven. The second variant is Iu, because the sounds for the letters I and E started to become indistinguishable in the Levant and Assyria by 850 before the Common Era. These variants are linked to the alphabetic Akkadian original Song of the Sea in Exodus 15, paragraph 25 as follows. There's an Akkadian counterpart to the biblical Exodus narrative in 15. On account of divine stream fluids and on account of the authorities repelling the divine powers of EU, the angry, chastising waters of Yahoo, the divine powers of AU, the angry waters of AU are not refusing to be jealous, there goes that jealous God, of the omens aroused by the divine network. Exodus chapter 15 as translated here. El is better known to the public as the god Ea from Assyrian texts. The Assyrian god Ea is the same as the Sumerian Enki, because earlier Sumerian myths written in Akkadian and found in Assyrian archives simply replace Enki with El or Ea. This means, listen carefully, that Yahoo represents the masculine life growth manifestation power. Now let's go on the right side. In ancient pagan traditions, divine powers could be optimally personified. Deities did not have to always be perceived as humans, as they are in the Abrahamic religions. That latter development was due to the lordification process. The divine was always one unified whole, but it could have many different roles as perceived by the finite human mind. These differing roles or clusters of divine powers were labeled as different deities. Yahoo was one of those deities. Again, guys, I'm not going to read everything here, except that which is dealing in linguistics. In Akkadian, these sorts of possess grammatical endings, including the vowels I and E. So if the underlying power of Yahoo was desired, then it became Yahui. Because Akkadian prohibits inner vowels, this became Yahweh. Akkadian prohibits, in Hebrew, with no strict rules about dual use letters, the ending letter He became Yahweh, or in English, Yahweh. Once again, the source and reference is from the book written by Jeremy Black, A Concise Dictionary of Akkadian. This is what you call comparative study. All right? Now, I got one more for you. When you guys can see my screen, type of one in the room. We're going to go out with a bang on this. Y'all know I saved the bombs for the end, right? Watch this. You're right, Gabriella. Asar Imhotep's work was one-sided. I showed both sides. Now watch this. Can everybody see my screen? Type of one if y'all can see my screen. Type of one if you can see my screen. I'm going to make it big in a moment, but I just want to make sure it's up on the big screen. All right, perfect. Here we go. Make this nice and big. All right. All right. All right. Here we go. Some scholars have suggested. Okay. Some scholars have suggested that the form Yahweh appearing in personal names found on texts at Mari, which is an Elamite city-state in Mesopotamia on the Euphrates in Upper Mesopotamia circa 1800 to 1700 BC, as well as Kish in Lower Mesopotamia circa 18 to 1600 BC in the late Old Babylonian period, may be indicators that the origin of the name Yahweh may be Mesopotamian. Some scholars have suggested that the form Yahweh appearing in personal names found in texts at Mari on the Euphrates in Upper Mesopotamia circa 18 to 1700 BC, as well as at Kish in Lower Mesopotamia circa 1800 to 1600 BC, in the late Old Babylonian period, may be indicators that the origin of the name Yahweh may be Mesopotamian. Guys, this is what you call balanced and genuine scholarship. We're not just presenting all the scholars that agree with us, we're also talking about the scholars that disagree with us. So I began my demonstration the right way by stating my overall agenda, right, which was to critique and rebuttal Asar Imhotep, right, as well as to address the errors in his argument in saying that Yahweh was of Egyptian origin, And then lastly, I demonstrate emphatically why we know it's not Egyptian origin, it's of Mesopotamian origin. So watch this again. And let me make sure, I want to make sure the whole screen is being shared. Okay, boom. All right, here we go. Abraham, according to some scholars, lived about the same period of time when the name Yahweh appears in texts of both Lower and Upper Mesopotamia in Kish and Mari. Abraham is portrayed as living in both of these locations, Ur of the Chaldees in Lower Mesopotamia and Haran in Lower Mesopotamia, in Upper Mesopotamia. The Bible suggests it is in Mesopotamia that Abraham learns of a God called Yahweh, and Yahweh names do exist in the time frame of Abraham's world in this region. That is to say, the Bible seems to have remarkably preserved a very old association of Yahweh with Yahweh Name form from both Lower and Upper Mesopotamia. Y'all remember in Asar Imhotep's slide, he showed you the book Hebrew Isms of West Africa? Y'all remember in Asar Imhotep's slide that I showed you at the beginning, he showed you a quotation from this book, Hebrew Isms of West Africa, right? He showed you a quotation from it. And in that quotation, it posited that the name Nayame as a designation of the chief Ashanti god is equal to the Hebrew Yahweh. Even though when I said it to Raborn, the fake conscious community said I was being pseudo. But Asar could slide it off as scholarship and everybody's cool with it. That's why I don't really mess with that community, because they fake. All right? Most of the people teaching that community, they are absolutely fake. Can't mess with them. Not all of them, some of them. All right. Now watch this. It just clearly said, guys, what I just read, and I'm going to highlight the part that I'm talking about. That is to say that the Bible seems to have remarkably preserved a very old association with Yahweh Naame form, or Nawi name form, from both Lower and Upper Mesopotamia. This is very interesting, guys. Very, very interesting. Because the scholarship is clearly positing that Yahweh is of Mesopotamian origin, not Egypt. And it's doing a hell of a better job in proving that. Because even the Egyptians themselves, as I showed you in several slides, they classify Yahweh as a foreign deity, not of Egyptian origin. Even in the Egyptian literature itself, I showed you that they classify Yahweh as a foreign deity, not of Egyptian origin. So what the hell is Asar Imhotep even saying? And more important, Israelites, why are y'all worried about this guy? Professor Samuel Noah Kramer, the author of the Sumerians, he's authored many books, many of which I have on my bookshelf. He says, Professor Kramer on Abraham's birth being possibly circa 1700 BC, which falls in the period of Yahweh names occurring at Kish and Mari. Now watch this. However, there is another possible source of Sumerian influence on the Bible, Father Abraham himself. Most scholars agree that while the Abraham saga is told in the Bible, contains much that is legendary and fanciful, it does have an important kernel of truth, including Abraham's birth in Ur of the Chaldees, perhaps about 1700 BC, and his early life there with his family. This is a direct quote, guys, from The Legacy of Sumer by Samuel Noah Kramer on page 292 by the University of Chicago Press, printed 1963 and 1972. Another university professor says in 2 lectures given at Berlin, Germany in 1902 and 1903, that Yahweh appeared in cuneiform and clay tablets from the world of Hammurabi and his father. He understood Yahweh El meant Yahweh is God, to the degree that some scholars associated Amraphel of Genesis with Hammurabi. The name Yahweh appears to have been attested in Abraham's time if Abraham has been correctly dated to Hammurabi's world, the 18th century BC. The professor, and he has a German name, Deletisch, this is a direct quote from him. Through the kindness of the head of the department of the Assyrian and Egyptian antiquities and the British Museum, I am able to give a representation of 3 small clay tablets. They belong to the age of Hammurabi, one in particular to the reigns of his father, Sin Mobilit. They contain 3 names, which from their point of view of the history of the region are of the most far-reaching importance. These cuneiform inscription guys write and record the names are Yahweh is God. Write in the cuneiform inscriptions, written in Akkadian script. The only inscriptions you find in Egypt that are remotely related to quote unquote Yahweh in some shape or form is always to describe him as a foreign deity, and is never to describe him as a deity of Egyptian origin. Asar Imhotep failed horribly with what he presented as scholarship, but what really was sloppership. I'm sure he's on intellectual suicide watch as we're speaking. All right, y'all. I'm going to stop here for a moment because hopefully I said enough to get the debate going. So we're going to end the presentation here. If you guys enjoyed the presentation, thumb up the video, y'all, and share it live. Thumb up the video and share it live. As you guys always hear me say time and time and time and time and time again, when you are well studied, the work is easy. What the hell are we worried about? When you are well studied, the work is easy. Don't inbox me telling me who's coming at us. The work is easy. Y'all all could do it. These guys are not anything that we should be worried about. If I could leave the Hebrew community with any last words, I would say, when you're well studied, the work is easy. And to the remainder of those watching who are not in the Hebrew community, I will say to you, congratulations, you played yourself. You allowed those that you respect, love, and maybe even admire to pull magic tricks in front of your eyes and give you the sleight of hand. So I say to you all, congratulations, you played yourself, and I'm out.
Still haven't tried the Locklicious all-natural hair care product line? Well, let's hear what the Lock community has to say about it.
I love how it sprays and how it fills, you guys. Like, it feels so good. And it smells amazing, you guys.
The Lock and Twist moisturizer was really good for me. The hydration mist was phenomenal.
This is the bomb, baby. I was really impressed, kind of blown away, and I think that if you're struggling, definitely go check them out.
And check out the 5-star reviews on our website. So, what are you waiting for? Go to locklicious.com to start treating your crown like royalty.
If you want to have a better view on how the Bible looks at women in its proper context, then you should get these 2 books. Matriarchs of the Covenant, written by Abdil Ben Levi, popularly known as Zion Lexx. This is a masterpiece.
All right, everybody. As a closing thought, do remember I have classes all week. You can email me at zionlex@gmail.com to jump into my classes. I got language classes going. I have Torah and history classes going. I have classes where we get into the esoteric understanding of the ancient cultures of the world, namely that of the Bible. But we also talk about the esoteric aspects of other adjacent cultures. And we go through it with a fine-tooth comb. And I got to tell you, we've been doing this for a while now, and we've been growing strong. To all those who watched the video and you enjoyed it, but make sure you thumb up the video and share it live. Be very, very sure to subscribe to this video if this is your first time on the channel. Also, family Israelites, make sure you support and donate. Don't let it be said that y'all are on everybody's platform donating and showing love. But the very Israelites that defend the culture that you believe in, that tends to get slandered on those same platforms that you're sending money on, you don't even donate to the platforms that support you. With that being said, y'all, have a great night, peace, and we out of here. Take care.